Why don't we talk about my first encounter with spiritual weirdos, which were the Hare Krishnas? Which again, as I've said in the past, I say with love. Really, because the Hare Krishnas really were what started it all for me.
Story time with Bobby Boy. He could tell you a story about life.
I dare anyone to go hang out at a Krishna temple and not kind of fall in love. It's an easy religion to fall in love with. It's for good reason. For good reason.
Because they're so A-typey.
They're so A-typey. I mean, they're definitely motivated. That's for sure. If you want to be around people who are motivated, be around Hare Krishnas. The Hare Krishnas are like the gateway drug for spirituality because they're so often the first spiritual, like overtly spiritual people that young people meet are Hare Krishnas because you meet them literally everywhere. I think the first time I ran into Hare Krishnas was in middle school on a class trip to the Smithsonian in Washington, D.C. And they were outside selling books. And I remember even then, the teachers were like, "Oh, don't talk to them." You know what I mean? Don't go over there. And I really wanted to play it cool. And I was like, "What's the big deal?" And I was interested. I was interested in the Hare Krishnas even then. But I had no idea what they were. They were just like weird looking people that had like cool saffron robes. Brahmacharis. So yeah. Anyway, that's how I first met the Hare Krishnas.
The end.
The end.
Great story.
That's it. So I met the Hare Krishnas. There. Then, second encounter with Hare Krishnas was at Lollapalooza. Because the Hare Krishnas were just around. They were around everywhere. Anywhere I looked, there seemed to be Hare Krishnas around. You roll up to Lollapalooza, go in the parking lot.
Hey, don't I know you from somewhere?
And I remember the first time they got me on it. I was like, maybe, because I was playing in a hardcore band at that time, or playing in some band. And I had kind of heard about it, and I was like, maybe. And so he got me. So then we started talking, and then I bought some books and stuff. But then I saw him do it to other people right in the same parking lot. And I was like, this guy either knows a lot of people at this Lollapalooza concert, or it's just a pitch. You know, it was a pitch. But that's fine. You know, that's their way. The Hare Krishnas are masters of the pitch. In the hardcore scene, which a lot of people don't seem to know, which is surprising, but in the hardcore punk scene, there were a lot of Hare Krishnas. The Hare Krishnas were there because there were a number of Krishnacore bands. There was Shelter, 108, Prima, Baby Gopal. Who else? What was interesting about it in the hardcore scene was that it was very conservative. Hardcore in the 80s was more liberal in the sense of not like liberal politically, though they were, but more liberal, you know, more like kind of do your own thing, make your own choices, you know, the classic punk rock DIY expressions. But then hardcore took this turn and started to get militant, and not militant cool, militant uncool. By that, I mean, it started to get very conservative. It became very, very structured, very militant, very gatekeepery, who was in, who was out, a lot of like accusations of who's not straight edge and all that kind of stuff. And the Hare Krishna movement, or the Hare Krishna aspect of hardcore music, fit into that. It carried with it that kind of conservative morals approach. You can read In Defense of Reality, which is a book of interviews with Ray Capo, Raghunath. Super conservative, especially sexually speaking, very conservative. Very much like sex is, painful, and procreation, sex is only for procreation, and sex is not enjoyable. It just like places you into the sense world. It was all this stuff. Now today, the Hare Krishnas have softened that message, but at the time in the early 90s, late 80s, early 90s, that was the message, and it was a conservative message. The first day I got my driver's license, I got in the car with my girlfriend at the time, and we drove up to Tawako, New Jersey to go to the Hare Krishna temple in Tawako, New Jersey. It was a Wednesday night, I remember, because on Wednesdays they would do free prasad and chanting. So it was an open night, which many Hare Krishna temples do. We rolled up. It was a long driveway because the Tawako temple was like a big house. It was like a mansion on a big hill that looked over the road down below. So it was on this big hill. So you drove up this long driveway. And the first thing I remember noticing was the number of people wandering. There was a lot of wandering on the property, which I had never seen before. I had never seen anybody wander. Like, I grew up in the suburbs. If you wanted to go outside, you got your skateboard and you went outside and went skating. But you didn't wander. And these people were walking, and they were walking with their hands behind their back. Like, these people are just passing time.
And we span time together. We span time together as a couple, because we're a loving couple, spanning time. These photos are us in love, spanning time.
They're just passing time here.
That's how spiritual people walk.
That's exactly right. That's when I learned how spiritual people walk. Spiritual people walk slowly, thoughtfully, with their hands behind their back. And I still do it. I still do it. If I'm feeling particularly spiritual out in the world, hands behind the back, always. It was kind of like a who's who of the Hare Krishna movement when you went there, because that temple had a number of hardcore, like people in the hardcore movement who were Hare Krishnas would live there or hang out there. So when you rolled up there, you might see, someone from a band walking around doing their japa. And they would do their japa on a count clicker, not necessarily on the beats, which I remember when we rolled up that day, I was like, that's really interesting. This guy had a little clicker in his hand. This is not nice. This is not a nice thing. I had heard some criticism of the Hare Krishnas, that the women weren't treated so well and they were considered breeders. Now it's a little yikes. Yeah, it's a little yikes. It's definitely yikes. I don't know if it was true or anything, but I say that because when I walked in, I remember seeing these women and thinking, oh, these must be the breeders. Isn't that intense? It's really intense, and I couldn't get it out of my mind. I could not get it out of my mind. Like, every woman I saw, I was like, there's a breeder. How awful is that? That's so intense. Is it bad that I thought that? I mean, I was 17 years old. I didn't know. You
You really didn't know.
I didn't know. I mean, I knew enough to assume that these were human beings with agency, but the story about what their role was and what their relationship to the hierarchy within ISKCON was, I did not know that, but I couldn't get it out of my head. I remember I wanted the books. I wanted the Bhagavad Gita, and I wanted like one or two other ones, because the books, have you ever seen these books? Krishna books, the Prabhupada, specifically Krishna books. And I used to love those books. I don't know how much money I had on it, but it was not what was expecting me to give him, because it was far less. And I was like, yeah, I'd love these books, blah, blah, blah. And I think I had $5. And he's like, yeah, I can give you them for $5. And I remember that was one of the first experiences I had of the monetary exchange of religion, spirituality, because I didn't know. I just thought it was donation, whatever you can give, they'll be super happy. They'll just be stoked that you even offered money. Of course, he took it and gave me the books and all that. But I remember there was hesitancy there. And I remember feeling like, okay, well, money talks, even at this low level.
When did your relationship with them end? Like when you bought the $5 books, that was it? Like you never went back? Or
Funny story. The story doesn't really end because I am still in communion and in communication with Hare Krishnas to this day, because why not? The Hare Krishnas are wonderful. I love the Hare Krishna community. And if I see them on the street or, on the subway or whatever, I always hang out there, always, because it is a direct line. That spiritual system is a direct line. You know what I mean? Like people talk about like there's no separation between God and I. That religion gets it. That spiritual system gets it, and you can experience it on the subway platform. So when I'm around them, I am there, present. So the story doesn't end. My story with Hare Krishna does not end.